Have you ever been in a situation where you wanted to speak up, defend yourself, shout, explain to everyone what they don't understand? But something stopped you, like a silent voice somewhere deep inside you, saying, "Be quiet." Look, and that's when everything changed. Because sometimes Allah doesn't want you to answer. He wants you to see how He will answer in your place. What you are about to discover is what happens when you choose silence and Allah decides to speak through events. Stay until the end, because what you are about to hear might very well change the way you react to everything life throws your way. You know, there comes a time in every believer's life when silence becomes more powerful than all the words in the world. It's not an empty silence. It's not a silence of escape. It's a silence filled with meaning, charged with meaning, full of faith. You've been in that situation before, haven't you? Where everything inside you wanted to speak, to justify yourself, to right an injustice. But something within held you back. A strange calm, as if your heart were telling you, it's not for you to respond. And yet, everything around you screamed the opposite. People said you were weak, that you let things happen, that you didn't know how to defend yourself. But what they don't understand is that your silence wasn't surrender. It was submission, and not to them, but to Allah. There is a level of faith where you stop trying to prove and you begin to bear witness. You let the world speak while your heart turns to the one who knows. Because deep down, you have understood something that few understand. Truth doesn't need noise to exist. It stands firm, even in the most complete silence. That silence is proof. Proof that you trust your Lord more than your own tongue. Prove that you know He sees what others ignore. And believe me, Allah loves those who remain silent out of respect for Him. Not those who remain silent out of fear of people, but those who remain silent because they know their words could negate the reward of their patience. You see, when you respond to injustice with anger, you seek a visible victory. But when you respond with silence, you prepare for an invisible victory. And this victory isn't instantaneous. It matures over time. It's woven into the very fabric of God's plan. It manifests itself in details that only your attentive heart will recognize. Silence is like a seed planted in the soil of faith. No one sees it. Some might even think there's nothing there. But you know that beneath the surface, something is growing. Every second you remain calm, while everything inside you burns. Every word you hold back while your ego screams, every glance you avert to avoid responding is a silent prayer rising directly to heaven. And up there, nothing goes unnoticed. Nothing. This silence is also a mirror, because it shows you who you truly are. When you remain silent, when you could explode, you discover the strength of your soul. You realize that your peace no longer depends on what people say or think. It comes from somewhere else, higher, deeper, purer. And sometimes, Allah puts you through these moments of enforced silence precisely to teach you this. To teach you that peace is not found in outward victory, but in inner mastery. Do you think it's unfair? That it's hard? Yes, it is hard. But it is in this hardship that your heart is forged. It is in this fire of injustice that your faith becomes real, alive, and strong. Look closely. Those who truly trust in Allah are not those who speak the most. They are those who observe. Those who watch events unfold without rushing. They know that every unnecessary word could interfere with the divine plan. So they remain silent. They pray. They wait. And one day, silence speaks for them. Truths burst forth. Faces are revealed. Hidden intentions appear. And everyone finally sees what Allah saw all along. But you, at that moment, no longer need to be right, because your heart has already found its peace. The battle ended long ago, not around you, but within you. The silence is proof that you have understood that your role is not to control, but to entrust. It is the silence of the heart that has learned to say, Ya Allah, I leave it to you. And when this phrase leaves your heart, the spiritual world opens. Things begin to stir that you cannot yet see. Prayers you thought were lost come back to life. Answers are being prepared, slowly, surely, perfectly. So when you feel this urge to respond, to shout, to correct, remember, sometimes silence is not absence. It is a prayer being answered. And while you think you are doing nothing somewhere, Allah is already at work. And it is often at this precise moment, when everything seems calm, that the true transformation begins. Imagine a silent, dimly lit room. You sit there, staring blankly ahead. You think back to the words hurled at you, the accusations, the lies, the judgments, pronounced without even trying to understand your heart. You still feel that burning in your chest, that mixture of anger, sadness, and injustice. You want to speak. You want to explain everything. You want the world to know the truth. But something holds you back. A breath, an intuition, an inner light. You breathe deeply, and you remain silent. And at that precise moment, without your knowing it, the invisible world awakens. You think nothing is happening, that your silence changes nothing. You are mistaken. Because in a dimension your eyes cannot see, your stillness becomes a signal that angels understand. They note every beat of your heart, every tear you swallow, every word you choose not to utter. And in this silent but real world, a scale tips. The injustice done to you is weighed. Your silence, your patience, your choice not to retaliate, gain weight, become light. While on earth you are accused, forgotten, misinterpreted, in heaven, your name is spoken differently. The one who restrained himself, the one who let Allah defend his honor. No one around you sees this scene, but it is very real. It is the story no one tells, because it doesn't play out in the noise, but in the secret of the heart. You see, people think that battles are won with words, arguments, proofs. But true victories, those that Allah ordains for His servants, are won in silence, in the shadows, in the moment when you choose not to defile yourself, to prove your purity. And it is there, in that restraint, that the heavens bend down to you. There is something profoundly moving in the way Allah acts. He doesn't rush. He lets you experience incomprehension, loneliness, and doubt. He observes you struggling inwardly between your ego and your faith. And when you decide to let Him act in your place, that's when everything begins to shift. Slowly, subtly, things reverse. Those who talked too much begin to contradict themselves. Those who judged you finally reveal their true selves. Hidden truths emerge, not because you shouted them, but because Allah revealed them. You then understand that your silence wasn't a weakness, but a spiritual weapon, an invisible protection that only He could activate. And sometimes, the most fascinating thing is how everything is reversed. Where you thought you had lost your honor, Allah grants you a new dignity. Where you thought your silence erased you, He makes you shine. Where you thought your lack of response made you small, He elevates you before those who had belittled you. But this reversal, too, is silent. It doesn't come with applause or public apologies. It comes in the peace you suddenly feel, in the opportunities that open up, in the blessings that arrive quietly. You then realize what you lost by trying to defend yourself, you have regained by letting Allah defend you. And yet, no one around you sees any of this. They don't see your nights spent crying silently. They don't see your whispered prayers in the darkness, when you simply ask Allah for justice without your heart breaking. They don't see your struggle against your ego, your thoughts, your anger. But He saw everything, every detail, every hesitation, every second you chose peace over revenge. That silence people mistake for weakness is actually a conversation between you and your Creator. And it is in this invisible conversation that your story takes a new turn. Look around you. Those who hurt you may still be living as if nothing happened, but the signs are beginning to appear. Things are changing. Truths are being revealed. Hearts are finding peace. And you finally understand that you didn't need to speak, because your silence was a prayer, and your patience, an answer already written. The unseen world always works in silence. While you doubt, it acts. While you weep, it heals. While you remain silent, it prepares the scene of the reversal. And on that day, when everything is revealed, you will look back and understand. Your silence was the greatest expression of your faith. But what you don't yet know is that this silence was only the first step. For sometimes, Allah doesn't just want you to be silent. He wants to transform you entirely through this silence. And that is where the part that few are ready to experience begins. What if it wasn't the person who hurt you, but the test that Allah sent you through them? You see, there are situations in your life that seem like injustices, betrayals, provocations. But if you look deeper, it's not really people you're confronting. It's yourself. It's your ego, your nafs, your need to be right, your need to be heard. Because that fire that rises within you when someone attacks you, it's not just anger. It's your ego screaming, "Kadi, they must know I don't deserve this." But your heart whispers softly, "Leave it. Allah knows." And that's where the test begins. The real test. The one that isn't visible from the outside. You can remain calm in front of everyone, put on a smile, but inside the storm is raging. You replay the scene 1,000 times. You imagine what you could have said, what you should have replied. You want to show that you are strong, that you are not who people think you are. But you don't see that in this very moment, Allah is watching you, not to judge you, but to purify you. He wants to see what you choose, the reaction of the heart or the reaction of the ego. And it is there, in this tiny but crucial choice, that your elevation takes place. You say, "But why should I remain silent? It's not right." Yes, it's true, it's not right. But what if this injustice is precisely the means by which Allah wants to teach you inner justice? The kind of peace that doesn't depend on others, but on the peace you hold within. What if every word you're about to speak takes you a little further from that peace? What if your victory, this time, comes not from noise, but from silence? You know, there's an ordinary sword, and there's a purified sword. The ordinary sword is when you outwardly hold back. The purified sword is when your heart remains calm, even when your soul burns. And that sword attracts things that words repel. It attracts mercy, clarity, divine justice, without you having to ask for them. But to reach it, you must go through something few dare to face: inner silence. That emptiness that makes you doubt, that feeling of injustice that suffocates you. That moment when you say to Allah, Ya Rab, I don't understand why I'm the one who has to remain silent. And He, in His wisdom, answers you without words. Because I want to show you what you cannot see as long as you react. Do you want to prove something? He wants to purify you. Do you want to convince Him? He wants to set you free. So He sends you a test, a hurtful word, a betrayal, a misunderstanding, not to break you, but to lift you above yourself. True sabr is accepting that Allah's justice is slower, but infinitely more perfect than your own. It's understanding that your silence today is not a loss, but a spiritual investment. Every word held back, every emotion controlled, becomes an invisible light surrounding you. And sometimes you feel that light. When you choose not to respond, and a strange calm washes over you. When you feel a peace you don't understand, it's a sign that Allah has seen you, that He has noted your effort, and that something, somewhere has just been erased, repaired, or replaced. Do you think you missed a chance to defend yourself? In reality, you seized a chance to purify yourself. Because in this battle between your ego and your faith, the one who remains silent is not the one who loses. It's the one who sees beyond. And you know what's beautiful? It's that Allah never tests you to deprive you. He tests you to prepare you. Because the one who learns to be silent out of faith is ready to receive what others demand without understanding. So yes, sometimes you'll have to swallow your pride, hold back your anger, and accept the apparent injustice. But while you think you're losing, Allah is lifting you up. While you weep in silence, He is cleansing you. While you doubt, He is writing you an ending better than any you could have created yourself. And later, when it's all over, you'll understand. You'll see how every word you chose not to utter protected you from a mistake, a regret, a growing distance. There's the hidden test behind your urge to speak. It's not a test against others. It's a test against your own ego, a silent duel between reaction and trust. And every time you choose silence, you win a battle no one sees, but that all of heaven celebrates. And what if, the next time your heart burns with the desire to answer, you remembered that perhaps Allah is offering you the opportunity for an unseen victory? Because there are times when silence is not an end, but the beginning of a miracle that Allah is preparing in the shadows. Do you think nothing is happening? That your silence changes nothing? That your calm is useless in a world that shouts louder than you? Look closely. Look carefully. Because Allah often acts in the silence that others despise. While you hold back your words, He moves mountains without anyone noticing. While you refrain from reacting, He writes a new scene for you, where you only saw the end. You see, the world thinks that everything is won with words, demonstrations, and proofs. But the believer knows that true power lies in the calm of knowing that Allah is watching. When you hold back, you are not inactive. You're obeying. You are saying without speaking, Ya Rab, I trust you. And that unspoken phrase, it makes the unseen worlds tremble. Look at how Allah acts when you refuse to taint yourself. Look at how He changes hearts without you having to convince them. Look at how He closes doors you didn't know were dangerous, and how He opens others you would never have dared to dream of. Because when you hold back, you don't lose. You let the divine act in your place. Do you think your silence makes you vulnerable? number. It makes you untouchable. Because the moment you decide not to respond, you step out of the human battlefield and into Allah's realm. And in that realm, the laws change. The deadlines change. The outcomes change. That's where divine justice begins. Slow, discreet, but unstoppable. Do you know what Allah does when you remain calm? He reveals what needed to be revealed. Not all at once, not with scandal, but with a perfection that makes you think. The masks fall away, gently. The truths rise to the surface, like bubbles that can no longer be contained. Hidden intentions are unveiled on their own. And everything you try to prove with your words, Allah proves better with His signs. Look how He acts when you efface yourself for Him. He transforms your silence into a light that precedes you. He shifts perspectives. He changes perceptions. And suddenly, those who doubted you sense that there is something different. Not because you justified yourself, but because Allah has silently cleansed you. And you walk peaceful. You have nothing to say, nothing to prove. You simply feel a peace that nothing can explain. Because your heart knows it has been protected from above. When Allah acts, it is never partial. He doesn't just correct the situation. He corrects your perspective, your soul, your understanding. He shows you that everything you thought was a loss was actually a sorting, a protection, a preparation. You lose people, but you gain clarity. You miss opportunities, but you gain blessings. You lose a position, but you gain your destiny. And all this without you needing to say a word. There are times when Allah acts so powerfully in your life that you don't even need to speak for others to see that He is with you. Things fall into place on their own. Paths open up where you thought you were stuck. The doors close where you would have fallen. And then you realize your silence wasn't surrender. It was a divine strategy. Do you know why it's sudden when Allah decides to act? Because He waits for your heart to let go before acting in His way. As long as you cling to control everything, He lets you. But the day you say inwardly, Ya Rab, it's in your hands now, then the world begins to move differently. You will see synchronicities you don't understand, answers coming from places you didn't expect, exits appearing where there were only walls. And then you will understand what your tongue couldn't obtain, your tawakkul, reliance on God, attracted. Look closely. Look around you. Everything you left to Allah, He repaired in a gentler, fairer, more perfect way. And everything you tried to resolve yourself exhausted you without giving you peace. Do you understand the difference now? Your silence is your covenant with Allah. It is your way of saying to Him, I know that you see, I don't need to speak. And this, I don't need to speak, is the purest expression of tawakkul, reliance on Allah. So the next time you feel the pressure rising, when you want to respond, explain, defend yourself, remember what Allah does when you hold back. He doesn't just help you, He elevates you. He purifies you. He shows you that there is no greater strength than that of one who completely surrenders to Him. And when all this happens, when you see the situation reverse itself without your intervention, you feel only one thing: certainty. The certainty that Allah had only asked one thing of you: remain calm, observe, and leave it to me. There is a wisdom known only to the silent, a peace not found in words, but in the spaces between them. A secret the world's clamor cannot comprehend. The secret is that silence is not empty, it is inhabited. Inhabited by a presence, a consciousness, a light that only a peaceful heart can perceive. You see, when you stop speaking, it's not just your mouth that falls silent. It's your soul that begins to listen. And it is at that moment that you discover a dimension of faith that few attain. The one where you no longer need to ask Allah to prove His presence, because you feel Him in every silence you choose. The world will tell you that silence is weakness. But those who know Allah know that He is power. Because in silence, you no longer react to creation. You connect with the Creator. Each time you refrain from responding, you don't stifle your truth. You elevate it. You raise it from the level of the ego to the level of the heart. And it is in this purified heart that true guidance manifests. The silent ones don't justify themselves. They let events speak for them. They don't demand human justice because they know that divine justice has its own rhythm. A rhythm that the hurried world cannot keep up with. Do you want to know why Allah loves the silent ones? Because they have understood what most forget. Silence is not saying nothing. It's saying something different. It's speaking with your attitude, with your steadfastness, with your confidence. It's watching the storm pass without entering it because you know that the wind that destroys others will guide you. And in this calm, something extraordinary happens. You begin to see. You see things that others don't. You understand signs that the impatient miss. You feel the presence of Allah no longer as an idea, but as a reality. That's the secret of the silent. They hear what noise prevents them from hearing. You might be wondering, but how can I remain silent when everything compels me to react? The answer lies in the heart. When you truly surrender to Allah, your need to speak naturally diminishes. Because you no longer have anything to defend. You no longer have an image to preserve, no gaze to seduce. You have only one direction, Him. And this, Him, once He fills your heart, silences everything else. The silence of believers is not cold. It is warm, deep, vibrant. It is a silence that prays, that meditates, that submits. And while people ask you why you don't react, your soul is conversing with Allah in a language they cannot understand. It is in silence that the greatest inner changes take place. Because by ceasing to speak, you allow Allah to speak to your heart. And what He tells you in those moments is not conveyed through words. It is intuition, peace, certainty. You don't know how you know it, but you know. You feel that this trial had to come. You feel that this pain had a purpose. You feel that this silence has reconnected you to something you had lost, closeness to Him. And the further you go down this path, the more you understand. Silence is not a lack of response. It is the most powerful response, because it shows that you have faith. And true faith is when you no longer try to understand everything, but accept watching Allah's plan unfold without interfering. Those who are silent know that everything eventually reveals its truth. They know that time is on the side of those who remain sincere. They know that a peaceful heart attracts divine justice, and that a troubled heart attracts confusion. So they choose stillness, not out of weakness, but because they have tasted the sweetness of this stillness, and they know that no outward victory is worth this inner peace. Look at them, these silent ones. They walk silently, yet their footsteps echo in the unseen world. They pray without boasting, yet their prayers open doors no one else can open. They suffer without complaining, yet their endurance inspires hearts they don't even know. They have understood that greatness is not measured by one's voice, but by the peace one carries within. And you, if you are here, it is perhaps because Allah wants to remind you of this secret. He wants to tell you that your silence was not in vain, that your calm was not ignored, that your withdrawal was not a loss, but an invitation to enter another level of faith. Because when you stop speaking to the world, you finally hear what Allah wanted to tell you from the beginning. You no longer need to explain. You no longer need to convince. You observe. You understand. You see the promise of Allah unfolding right before your eyes. Because when you stop talking to the world, you finally hear what Allah has been trying to tell you all along. You no longer need to explain. You no longer need to convince. You observe. You understand. You see Allah's promise unfolding right before your eyes. And at that precise moment, you realize that your silence wasn't a reaction. It was a response. But there's one more thing. A truth that even the silent discover late. This silence, when it becomes light, begins to transform everything you touch. And that's where true change begins. You understand? Science isn't a weakness. It's a declaration of trust. It's your heart saying to Allah, I leave it to you. And that's where miracles begin to manifest. So the next time you feel that inner fire, that urge to speak, remember, the greatest sign that you truly believe is when you remain calm and watch Allah at work. If this message has touched you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Perhaps someone, somewhere, just needs to hear that silence is sometimes the most beautiful response. And subscribe, because future messages might remind you that even in your silence, Allah is always listening.